What is going on, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of Chasways In. For those of you that tuned in for episode 1, thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate it. I'm really excited about this podcast and like where it's gonna go, and I've already got like topics lined up and everything, so I'm just super excited about it. So today is the day after Thanksgiving, and I want to just talk to you guys about yesterday and about how things went, because yesterday was the very first Thanksgiving with food allergies. So I want to talk about it and talk about how it went and our approach to it and all of that. So to give you guys a little bit of background in case you do not know, I am gluten intolerant, and I also do not consume soy or dairy through the recommendation of my doctor. This is not something that I am doing because I want to, and I want to be healthy and all of that. It is medical reasons why I have to do this. Gluten, I don't eat gluten. I stopped eating gluten in January of this year simply because I was having severe reactions that pointed to gluten intolerance, and there's really not a test for actual gluten intolerance. You just have to like say, hey, these are the things that I'm doing and I'm feeling. Let's eliminate gluten and see if that, if those symptoms continue, which they did not. So that is why I no longer eat gluten. And then this summer, I started getting a lot of dizziness and vertigo, and my ENT recommended that I cut out dairy to see if that would help, and it did. However, a couple of weeks ago, the dizziness and vertigo came back, and so a week ago, my doctor recommended that I cut out soy. So I do not consume gluten, dairy, or soy, mainly because we think that I'm allergic to those items and they are causing some really crazy, not so fun things going on, which I talk about in a few videos back, so check those out if you have not already. But Thanksgiving, this was the first Thanksgiving with all three of those allergies. And when I first thought about Thanksgiving, I was really kind of just upset about it. Like, I know that Thanksgiving is not necessarily about the food, that it is about family and friends and being thankful for what you have. But it's also about getting together and hanging out and bonding over a home cooked meal. To me, like, that's, I don't know, it's just something about like both sides of the family coming in and just hanging out and talking and laughing and joking and all of that. So when I first thought of Thanksgiving, I was really kind of bummed because I was like, what am I going to eat? Like, seriously, like, what am I going to eat? Because everything is going to have dairy and, and the stuffing has gluten in it and soy. Like, I don't even know what all has soy in it because this is so new. But I was really just kind of like, bummed about it at first. But Kelly and I decided to host so that way we could cook the food and have control over what goes in the food. And when we sat down, we made a list of what are the items that we want to have for Thanksgiving. Just don't even think about the allergies, but what are these items that we want to have? So we knew we wanted a turkey. We knew we wanted a ham. Mac and cheese is always there. Stuffing, gravy, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole is a must in our family. And then, you have your desserts, your pumpkin and your pecan. And so we made a list of like, hey, these are all the things that we want to have, and these are all the foods that we want. And it was me and Kelly, and then Kelly's sister was cooking things as well. So we just said, okay, well, what do these things have? Like, what are the ingredients that these things have? And when we broke it down that way, it was a lot easier. Kelly's sister was in charge of the stuffing, so she made the stuffing like normal, and she makes it from scratch. She makes like homemade stuffing, so it's so good. But she made a side piece of stuffing, or a side bowl of stuffing just for me from gluten-free bread. And so like, to me, like, that's so awesome because she was very thoughtful and caring about it. Like, my biggest thing with all these allergies, I don't want to inconvenience anybody, but at the same time, I have to realize, like, these are my allergies, and I can't consume these foods. Like, I can't consume them because I know what happens and I know how sick it has made me. So I shouldn't be so apologetic, but I'm still like, I don't want to inconvenience you, whatever. But she was very kind, and she made a side dish of stuffing just for me with gluten-free bread, and made sure it didn't have any of the other ingredients in it, so that was pretty awesome. As far as mac and cheese, like she made her normal mac and cheese, and then I actually made some Daya vegan cheese, that mac and cheese, which to me is really good anyway, so I was pretty happy with that. And then other things like the green bean casserole was kind of a challenge because I could not find cream of mushroom soup that was not only dairy but soy free or gluten free. Like there was always one of those components in the soup. So we basically had to make it from scratch. So Kelly made cream of mushroom soup from scratch just so she could put it in the green bean casserole, which ended up being amazing. You couldn't tell that it was any different, but I thought that was really awesome that she did that because I mean, it took some time. And then, you know, the turkey gravy, that's another thing. Like Kelly made that from scratch. Like we got, you know, you get the wings and you have to cook it and then you boil it in all. I mean, it was a process. It was like a 3-day process. But she did that just so that I could have the gravy and to be able to make my plate just like everyone else and not for once not have to think about like, okay, well I can't have that, or not have to explain to everyone like why I'm not eating or whatever. It was so nice and it was so awesome, and I'm so thankful for those that were able to like help make this a lot more manageable. So honestly, like there were, I mean, aside from rolls, like there wasn't anything that I couldn't eat because I had my own mac and cheese and I had my own stuffing and everything else, like the mashed potatoes, like everything else we made to where we knew what was in it and we knew that it did not contain any of those 3 allergens. Even the pumpkin pie, like, so I made the pumpkin pie. First of all, we got pie crust, which was gluten, dairy, and soy free, which is so awesome. I think it's like Wholly Wholesome or something like that. There's a local store here in Dallas called Herb Mart, and they had it, and it was actually pretty inexpensive. I was kind of shocked, but they tasted like normal pie crust, so like that was pretty awesome. But the pumpkin pie needed evaporated milk, and I was like, how do you sub evaporated milk? Like, are you kidding? But I used coconut milk, and you stick it in the fridge and you let it separate, so you let the fat separate, and then it's just kind of watery, and that is what I used, is coconut milk. And you couldn't tell that it had coconut milk in it because it wasn't very coconutty. And then I was able to find some like whipped cream made from coconut milk. I think So Delicious makes it. And so I was able to have pumpkin pie. Like, it's just things like that to me. Like, I know food should not be that big of a deal, but in times like these, like to me, that was like such a big deal because there wasn't anything that I couldn't eat. Even the deviled eggs was made with Miracle Whip, which does not contain soy, but I think mayonnaise does contain soy. So there's like all these things like we found out and we've learned. And one of the weird things that I've learned is that country crock butter, like if you guys are from the South, you may have grown up on country crock butter, does not have dairy in it, which I thought was really strange. I'm like, this was a staple in my home, but it does not have butter. So it tastes like butter, and it's quote unquote butter, but it doesn't have dairy. So it's kind of interesting. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys about like what it was like and what it, you know, what we did and how we kind of managed it. And honestly, like when you think about the big picture, it's a little bit daunting. And I think you can relate this to anything in life. When you look at the big picture, it can be very, very daunting, but break it down. Like break it down to the super fundamentals, and then you'll realize it's not that bad. You know, and actually like I enjoyed it. I know Kelly did most of the cooking, but she actually enjoyed making some of this stuff from scratch because it was almost like you took it back to like the back in the day when people actually made their food from scratch and you knew what was in your food and you knew exactly like what you were consuming. And that was it's just been really, really cool to like see all that and to go through that. So that, you know, I'm thankful that we were able to make it work and to not let it get to us. and you know, like we have a Friendsgiving tomorrow, and I'm going to make a plate of food and take it over there just so that I can eat with everyone else. And at first I was kind of like, oh man, that's gonna suck. Like they're gonna think I'm weird or whatever. But I'm just saving myself because I don't want to deal with any negative, you know, any negative reactions to consuming those foods. Like I have to be very, very strict about it. And I have to say, like, it's also kind of changed in a way. It's kind of starting to change my thought process around food. And I woke up Thursday and with like a low weigh-in that I mean, I was 229.6 pounds the day of Thanksgiving, and I was so excited because I hadn't been out of the 230s all year. So it's kind of like I'm starting to like think a little bit differently about food and really just not wanting to eat so many processed foods, for one, because of the fact that like it's not good for me. And so I'm like starting to look at like real foods and all of that. So I know that kind of like went on a little bit of a tangent, like, but I just feel like this whole thing and dealing with the allergies and dealing with, you know, all the foods and all of that, like it's really made me start to think differently about food and differently about how I approach it. And you know, it's not as daunting, and it's okay, and it will be okay, and there's ways around it. There are substitutions for everything. I mean, some people have all 8 of the major allergens and they're still going and they're still good. You know, I know a little boy who unfortunately has a handful of foods that he can eat. And so he's having to like add on foods to try to like test to see if he can handle those. So, you know, for me, like, I don't know, it sucks in a way because I'm, you know, I'm starting to learn like, okay, all my favorite foods that I like I can't eat this that I like, and I can't have that I like. But at the same time, it's changing the way that I think. I'm like, okay, well, I can't have that, and it's not that important. You know, there are other things that I can have that are probably way more healthier for me. So yeah, so Thanksgiving was great. It was amazing. I'm very happy with how it went. I'm very excited. And, you know, it was interesting to try to look up like substitution for things like, oh, another one was half and half, or like heavy cream, because we made quiche, and we used, what did we use? We used cashew milk and melted butter. And so it was, you know, it's kind of crazy, or melted country crock because it's not really butter. And so like it's been kind of crazy to like see all this stuff and like substitutions and okay, well, how can we make this work and this and that? And nothing tasted any different. Nobody knew any different. Like a lot of my family, like I haven't had a chance to talk to them about all these allergies and kind of explain it, because for some people it's very difficult to explain. Like it's kind of hard for them to understand, like I cannot have these foods because this will happen. And so like part of my family, like I didn't even tell them that anything was different. And for one, my brother, who's like this pickiest eater ever, like he didn't know anything was different. So I don't know, it's kind of funny when you think about it, because it's like, well, nobody knew. Like everyone was eating these foods that were, you know, gluten, dairy, and soy free, and they didn't even know it. So is it really that important that you have those food, like those in your diet? Like, I don't know. But anyway, enough, I digress. I just wanted to update you guys and talk about Thanksgiving and talk about how awesome it was, and how really when you boil it down and look at it from a just piece by piece, and like look at it in a piece by piece way, it's not that bad and it's not that hard. And at the end of the day, one of the things that Kelly and I always say is that all will be well. At the end of the day, no matter what, all will be well. And that's the thing that I'm like really like grabbing onto and holding onto lately, is that all will be well. Like it's not that big of a deal. And if it makes me feel better, then it's 100% worth it, and all will be well. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Thank you guys so much for listening. I truly appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. I have more ideas for episodes in the future. So thank you guys again for all your feedback. I truly appreciate it. and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.